It's great to be here. So 238 years old is the Navy's legacy. We've got a heck of a culture. This is a great day to be in the Navy. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of pressure. It's a dynamic world, but I think we're going to start with a video. So I want to show you about a 4-minute video. It's got a couple of supply officers at the end of it, just to get a sense of the youth, the diversity, the kind of people we have coming up in the Supply Corps, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about some of the leadership's lessons. It's just 10. You know, we could talk all day. I've got an hour. We'll try to leave some time for questions. So with that, let's roll the video.
We will not apologize for our way of life, nor will we waver in its defense. And for those who seek to advance their aims by inducing terror and slaughtering innocents, we say to you now that our spirit is stronger and cannot be broken. You cannot outlast us, and we will defeat you.
I was once told by a commanding officer, it's not a question of if we go to combat, it's a question of when.
Are you ready for the challenge to support and defend this country and to fight the 30-plus years we may be involved in this thing called terrorism?
We're deployed all over the world, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and we're prepared to meet the challenge when it arises.
The Navy's mission, it has and always will be, to go to sea and be ready to conduct a prompt and sustained combat operation.
No matter how long it takes, we're going to see it to the end, and we'll complete the mission.
Teamwork really is rooted in every single thing that we do in the Navy. Without it, we would not be an effective fighting force at all.
When you train like you fight like you train. And then no matter what happens, as long as you take that training seriously, you'll be ready for anything.
You have to be committed to live that life of excellence, to make the ultimate sacrifice.
Always strive to be something better or do something better.
There's a disaster or something, the Navy's always going to be the first one there to help out.
What keeps me motivated is because I know I have a job to do.
You are entering your profession, and you should treat it and think of it as such. You are entering not just something else, it's a way of life.
Whether it's 4 years or 20 years, if you put your heart into it, it'll be the best time of your career.
See the ships pull back in. There's still people out there ready to do the job if need be.
Enjoy your privileges and your rights. Just remember, there's still people out there that gotta go fight and secure those rights.
We're all one team, and we're all fighting for the same cause.
People worry about the youth of America. I don't, because I see the very best of them every day out here. I tell them I love the hell out of them all the time, and I mean it. They're just great Americans.
Now is a very exciting, demanding, and challenging time to be a Supply Corps officer in the United States Navy, especially in these austere times with financial constraints. The federal government and the United States Navy is seeking leadership especially from the Navy Supply Corps.
I chose the Supply Corps because I was interested in the business field, and I knew as a Supply Corps officer I would have the opportunity to manage a lot of people and a lot of parts.
Challenging billets, challenging positions, those are very, very important for us to seek. One thing we have a lot of freedom of as lieutenants in Supply Corps is to seek out the internship programs, the Flag 8 billets, things of that nature.
and develop ourselves as leaders by seeing other officers perform their tasks in a day-to-day environment.
As we grow as Supply Corps officers, especially as we get more senior, we have the ability to mentor some of our junior officers. And that's actually one of the more challenging and I would say the more fun parts of the job, is we can take these young kids that have got a lot of promise and share some of the lessons that we learned, sometimes the hard way, and just kind of watch them grow and develop.
Okay, so what do you think? How about that? So there's no real leadership secrets in the United States Navy. It's basic stuff. It's basic stuff that you all do every single day. For us, it starts with the commanding officer of a ship, of a unit, of a submarine, of a squadron. The accountability that we invest in senior leaders is the absolute most important thing. We don't teach senior leaders to be accountable from day one. First thing we do is we teach them to be trusted. You saw young men and women there. Young men and women who, in many cases, have just taken an oath of office. And they know what they learned in boot camp. They know what they learned in the Naval Academy or Officer Candidate School or their ROTC unit. They know that they have to be trusted. And that trust, that integrity is so critical. That's important to any business. So I would tell you the number one thing you see in that video and the number one thing you see in those young men and women there is a higher calling. So if there's one leadership secret more than anything else, it's why do you come to work in the morning? Sue talked a little about it yesterday. You know, what gets you up in the morning? What's your purpose? Those young men and women that you saw in that video, you think they understand why they come to work? Every one of them does. Every one of them understands whether you're a civilian or you're a military. We have 330,000 sailors in the Navy. We have 270,000 civilians. We have, you add in the reservists and you add in some of the other contractors, you're talking about 1 million people. And these 1 million people come to work every day with a clear understanding of why they're there, to support and defend America's interests at sea. Simple as that. Commanding officers lead them. I brought a commanding officer with me today. There's Captain Duke Hines over there. Duke, can you stand up for a second? Duke is the commanding officer of our Fleet Logistics Center in Jacksonville, Florida. Duke's background is in submarines. He was on submarines. He was on the aircraft carrier Nimitz as the head of the supply department, and he was the supply officer of the Blue Angels with over 60 hours in an F/A-18 Hornet, pulling 7Gs. Sue, I guarantee you his bucket list is completely different than anybody else's in the entire room. Duke, thanks. Duke's brought some of his team members with him too. So Duke's responsibility is to support the Navy in the Southeast, in South America, in that 4th Fleet area, from Jacksonville, Florida, down to the Gulf of Mexico, to Guantanamo Bay and throughout. Duke's one of those guys who's balancing the needs of the nation to be cost-wise in this harsh budget environment with the needs of the fleet. And I'll talk a little more about that. So most importantly, we motivate through a higher purpose. From Nimitz and Decatur and senior and famous naval leaders of old to the leaders of today and the up-and-comers of today. So it's clear after you've seen that, there's no doubt why we come to work in the morning. I want to talk a little about something President Kennedy said in 1963 when he was welcoming the class of 1967 to the Naval Academy. He said, "I can imagine a no more rewarding career, and any man in this century who was asked what he did to make his life worthwhile, I think he can respond with a good deal of pride and satisfaction. I served in the United States Navy." He went on to say, control of the seas means security. Control of the seas means peace. Control of the seas means victory. The United States must control the seas if we're to protect our security. We're a global force operating forward. We focus on war fighting, we focus on readiness, and we're forward. And we're operating from U.S. bases and international locations, supporting our allies and our partners in a range of challenges that range from piracy to terrorism to aggressive neighbors and natural disasters. You know, from earthquakes and tidal waves in Japan to natural disasters in Haiti and the U.S. like Katrina, we're there. And most importantly, supporting and defending our interests at sea. Shipping lanes, energy resources, information networks, security interests, they all intersect at places like the Straits of Malacca, the Straits of Hormuz, the Suez Canal, the Straits of Gibraltar. These shipping lanes, these lanes of commerce are so critical to business today. That's why we come to work. So that's the first lesson. Number two is being comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? In this day and age, in the harsh budget environment we live in and work in, and the challenging business environment, it's important to be on watch. In the Navy, most every sailor on a ship stands a watch. In a combat information center, in an engine room, or up on the bridge, scanning the horizon, looking for data points, looking for information, looking for contacts. We monitor the competition. We adjust our network. We adjust our plans so we can strike when needed. It's a fiercely competitive global market, whether you're doing the work that we do or you're doing the work that you do. In this global market, and make no mistake, most of us here are operating in a global environment. We have to channel the discomfort from not knowing exactly what the future holds and transform that into action. In my world, we're experiencing a tightening budget. Now, I'll leave some time for questions at the end, but this is nothing new. So you can ask me about sequestration, but I'd go back to 1785 after the American Revolution when Congress chose to completely dismantle the Navy. They disestablished it. That's the reason the Marine Corps is slightly older than us. But we're proactively managing our discomfort. We're consolidating in the Navy. We're consolidating global functions right now. Our logistics, contracting, financial management, fuels management. We're leveraging our strengths to find efficiencies because Congress demands it. That's really important to us. And I believe, frankly, like Amy said, there's no press here. I'll tell you what I think. I think sequestration's here to stay. And I don't think our top line is going to stabilize until probably 2017. We're going to have a smaller Department of Defense, and the Department of Defense, the Navy, and all of the services have better get their stuff together and focus on the future and get the right decisions made so we can be cost-wise and continue to do the nation's business. Let me talk about secret number 3, and that's flexible teams. You saw that loud and clear on the video. Having an agile, flexible team is the key to victory in the Navy, and it's the key to victory most everywhere else. It's easy for startups. It's even a little harder for those who have filled in all the white space on that organizational chart. And to a large extent, a 238-year-old organization, yeah, we've got our challenges in terms of trying to find the agility and the flexibility that we need. And I think that's one of the things that you see in our response to sequestration. But you know what? We can do it. As I was a kid growing up, I had to be agile because we all had multiple masters. I mean, growing up, we all had 2 parents. And for me, frankly, mom had the car keys and dad had the gas money. So trying to explain to both of them why I wanted to go out on a Friday night for a joyride took a little bit of dancing. But the challenges in the Navy of serving multiple masters are as simple as the fleet who needs every part they can possibly manage for every possible casualty, and comptrollers and business and budgeteers who want to be cost-wise. That's really important in this Navy today. I'll tell you a story of one of my friends is Admiral Jim Shannon. Jim's first ship was a patrol hydrofoil based out of Key West. What a deal, right? Based out of Key West on these patrol hydrofoils, they were little pocket battleships, fast, They had 76mm guns up forward, harpoon missiles in the back, and when they got up on their foils and they were going about 50 knots, they were very incredibly fast boats that were very important in the Gulf. So Jim's ship was finishing an overhaul at Key West. The last thing they had to do was sea trials. So they left the port and they went out, and the CO gave an all-ahead full button, and they pushed the throttles forward, and the ship picked up some speed, but it didn't get foil-borne. So they went back to the pier. Crew was kind of dejected, trying to figure out what's going on. Jim's still an ensign. He's one of the guys. He's still in the club, so the sailors, the young seamen, are willing to talk to him. He gets a tap on the shoulder. "Hey, Mr. Shannon, come here. I want to show you something." So they go into the engine room, they lift the deck plates, and under the deck plate is every part known to mankind. They had gone into the shipyard, and the crew had com-shot and stolen and lifted just about every part they could find because they wanted to be ready for anything, right? So Jim Shannon says, "You knuckleheads." They went and got a 5-ton truck, and they offloaded all those parts. And then he went to the CO and he says, "Hey, Captain, can we go try that again?" You know what happened. They went out, the CO gave an all-ahead full order. That ship popped right up onto its foils before you knew it. That is one example that portrays the challenges that we face in the Navy. The importance of planning. We have line officers who believe, frankly, they're at their frame of reference, as I've described it, is more is better and too much is never enough. And then you have the guys like supply officers who are looking for that win-win, just the right number of parts for the casualties that we have planned for and the engineering estimates that we expect to see, and a cost-wise approach to get it done. So that's just the way sailors think. They want it all. I think that's one of the most important things that supply officers do today, is add value at that critical intersection. So by owning the supply chain from the front end to the back end, factory to foxhole, factory to fantail, factory to flight tech, by owning that supply chain, we bring great value, and we bring the equivalent of order and discipline to the product line managers that are really the guys in the fleet who run the submarines and the aircraft carriers and the aircraft squadrons and the ships. And that's the great value that supply officers bring every single day. I think that's a perfect segue into my fourth secret, is trust. And in the Navy, as in any organization, trust has a hard value. Now, I've talked about the importance of trust. Supply officers keep our promises. We keep our promises. That's one of the most important things we do. And trust has a hard value. It's arguably the most important element in just about every partnership. From the sailors at the deck plate levels to our commanding officers, all the way up to the chief naval operations, trust has a hard value. If our customer doesn't trust us, we lose our business. Something Winston Churchill said stayed with me. He said, "A lie will get halfway around the world before the truth even gets his pants on." And that's the truth today in the supply chain business. All eyes are on the supply chainers when we're asked to keep a promise, especially when nobody is looking. That's the most important decision you'll make, is when nobody's looking. Keeping your promises is the same as keeping your integrity. And remember what John Greenert said, nobody can take your integrity from you. Let me talk about my fifth secret, and that's asking the right questions. Asking the right questions is like nurturing the Socratic mind. We're all expected to quickly assess our surroundings. The Navy guys, we move around every couple of years. And so we have a little bit of time to get it right. We have to ask some questions. Let's say we're getting ready to start a new job. We've got to ask questions. How many guys read the New York Times? I don't know if you saw Adam Bryant's leadership article. It could not have come at a better time. Saturday in the business day, there was an article about Bill Marriott. And Bill Marriott, who was just retired as the CEO of Marriott International, Bill started his career as a supply officer in the United States Navy. And Bill was the wardroom officer on an aircraft carrier. And he knew how to put out good food. And he said the food on that aircraft carrier was awful. So he called his dad and he said, "Dad, can you send me the recipe cards from the restaurants?" And he got them all. And he went to his cooks and he said, "The food here stinks. Here's these recipe cards. I want you to start using them." And you know what happened? Nothing. The food was still crummy. So when Bill Marriott left the ship, he left the ship with the same food that he arrived at. And he was really struggling with that. And then he finally figured it out. If only he'd sat down with the crew, sat down with the cooks and said, "How do you think we can improve the food?" That inclusive leadership, asking questions, was his mistake. He didn't understand it at the time. And he said, where I figured it out was, I figured it out later by reflecting on something that had happened. He said he was home on shore leave, and he was with his parents, and his parents asked Ike and Mamie Eisenhower out to the farm. And it was cold, and they were supposed to go out and shoot quail, and they weren't sure what to do. So his dad asked Ike, "Do you want to go out and shoot quail, or you want to sit by the fire?" And Ike turned to Bill Marriott, who at that point was a 22-year-old freshly minted ensign in the Supply Corps, and said, "What do you think?" And Marriott reflected on that. He says, "Darn, that was my mistake. I never asked, what do you think?" And he said in reflection, he says, that's how Ike managed de Gaulle and Churchill and all the other guys, just by asking them what they thought. So inclusive leadership means everything. And some guys like Bill Marriott, you know, he may get it wrong. Guys like me, I guarantee you, I got it wrong on my first ship. But you learn from your mistakes, and we're not a zero-defect Navy. We have to learn. And that's one of the reasons that we're such a great Navy, is because we allow ourselves to make mistakes and learn from them. So inclusive leadership, asking the right questions, that's really important. In fact, one of the quotes that I love is Eric Schmidt from Google. Eric wrote, "We run our company by asking questions, not by answers." Steve Robbins from Harvard wrote, he contrasted the value of questioning versus the mid-1980s commercial of Lee Iacocca pounding the boardroom table, you know, in those commercials of the mid-1980s. Now, I know there's various leadership styles, but I would tell you that Bill Marriott got it right. And he got it right at a young age, and I believe, you know, one of the things that his career in the Supply Corps exposed him to was you know, a tough bunch of stew burners who weren't going to listen to a young ensign unless he included them in the decision. So, pretty neat. Let me talk about secret number 6, and that's active listening. Now, I could quote Stephen Covey, but you all know that when you get higher up, you communicate and communicate and communicate. The higher you go, the more you communicate. And most of the time when you're listening with the intent to reply, not necessarily listening with the intent to understand. The ability of any leader to convey their vision is absolutely critical. But think about how important it is to actively listen. The United States naval victory in the Battle of Midway in World War II is an example of that. In 1942, it was the most stunning and decisive blow in the history of naval warfare. It was a victory that changed the nature of the fight in the Pacific. And it was active listening that did it. Admiral Nimitz Radio Intelligence Organization uncovered the Japanese plan by listening to their transmissions. And it allowed us to concentrate our forces at Midway and break the Imperial Japanese naval forces. And it's amazing what valuable information we can recover when we're in the active listening mode. It delivers benefits in our daily interaction. It's a designed way of showing respect. I first really learned the value of active listening when I was traveling to Japan. And it's a cultural difference. On my first ship, USS Kincaid, we went to Japan. We pulled into Yokosuka. We spent quite a bit of time there. And as you listen to the Japanese, they listen back to you. And it's amazing. It's one of those sort of aha moments when you realize that they are listening intently. So active listening is one of the most important things. Number 7, challenge your people to swim oceans. Okay, I'm in the Navy. You're not going to get me to say challenge your people to climb mountains. Swim. So I think that's important to us. But the most important thing is we all have our set of challenges. Some are more urgent than others. And creating an environment to allow your teams the opportunity to take on some of these big challenges is critical in this nature, in this day and age. And in some cases, people will fail. No matter what, the way we respond to our people with compassion, with intelligence, with thoughtful responses is critical. We've got to give our folks what they need. That's one of the most important things I do is I'm an active cheerleader. I challenge our folks to swim oceans, but I'm also an active cheerleader to help them get what they need. One of my favorite books is The Kane Mutiny by Herman Wouk. Ensign Willie Keith is a newly minted ensign aboard the USS Kane. It's a destroyer minesweeper, and the ship's in disarray, and they get a new CO, Captain Queeg. Comes aboard, and his famous speech at the beginning, he says, "I'm a bookman." Everything in that book was there for a purpose. On my ship, we do things by the book. Deviate from the book, and you better have a good reason. But let me remind you, you're going to get an argument from me, and I'm the captain, and I don't lose arguments. That's why it's nice to be the captain. Aboard my ship, excellence performance is substandard, standard performance is substandard, and substandard performance is not permitted to exist. Queeg continued. He said, there's 4 ways of doing things on board my ship. The right way, the wrong way, the Navy way, and my way. Do it my way, and we're going to get along just fine. So Captain Queeg approached his mission by imposing martial law. Inspirational? I think not. Instead, we have to inspire our men and women to understand and embrace the high expectations that we want. But doing it Queeg's way won't get you anywhere, right? Put them in the ocean and let them swim. Secret number 8 is what I've been talking about, being a cheerleader. I was thinking of Steve Rizzo and Droopy Dog yesterday. I think Droopy Dog is the antithesis of what we're talking about here. Nobody wants to work for Droopy Dog, right? We want to work for cheerleader. That's important to us. You've got to understand where your organization is going and cheer them on. But that means breaking down barriers, breaking down those challenges and helping them achieve what they want to do. One of the things that we're very proud of is the installation of the largest SAP ERP system in the world, 80,000 users. It enhances our entire supply system every single day. And yes, we're still finding our way with S&OP planning, but we're getting there, little by little. Material positioning, the right allowances inside the skin of the ships, the right allowances in Bahrain and Singapore and Yokosuka and around the world. So we're still managing through planning. But I am cheerleading for them. And what has our cheerleading gotten us? Recognition of the professionalism of the NAVSUP Business System Center as the Navy's business system experts. And even in a harsh budget environment, in a sequestered environment, we're we're adding jobs to the Naval Supply Systems Command's Business Systems Center. That's very exciting. And I'm so pleased to be a cheerleader. It's important to be appreciated. And you know what? Anybody knows Stan Musial? You know, Stan Musial was a Navy man. And of course, he played his career for the St. Louis Cardinals. And Bob Costas did his eulogy here last year when he died. And Bob talked about the fact that Stan Musial was an icon of his generation, a quiet leader on his team and in the league. He was a friend and advocate for minority baseball players way before his time. But most important, what Bob Costas wrote about Stan Musial is this. He said, Stan knew it was more important to be appreciated than to be glorified, to be respected, and be more important to be respected than to be celebrated. To be understood, it was more important to be understood and loved than to be idolized. And friendship was much more important than fame. That was Stan Musial. And Stan Musial, as a Navy veteran, he was a role model for all. That's leadership. Leadership is cheerleading, and Stan Musial was a heck of a cheerleader. In my role, I'm a cheerleader for the command, and that's one of the things I'm proud of. Secret number 9, initiate. As leaders, we have to take the initiative. Maybe it's having a 100-day plan as you prepare to start a new job. The weightiest days are often the first days on the job, the first months, the first 2 months, the first quarter. This is the time when you're in the questioning mode, when you're trying to understand people, understand processes. It's when you decide what to challenge and what to leave as the status quo. The tone you set in those early days is going to be important. But when you decide to take the initiative, that's when people will sit up and take notice. And having taken the initiative doesn't guarantee success. Not in my business, that's for sure. In fact, it likely means you're going to experience some disappointment. You know, we have plenty of big bets in the Supply Corps, in the Supply Systems Command. We got a lot of big bets. And there's some pretty big ones out there. We won't win them all. We'll lose a couple. But I'm excited for the challenges ahead. Trying to find the resources to get those big bets done, mobilizing towards an end state vision, getting everybody on the same page, creating alignment up and down, side to side. Those are big bets for me, and those are the challenges you have. We're not going to hit a home run every time, nor will you. But creating the initiative, creating the environment where initiative is welcome is important. And finally, remaining resilient. Kind of goes to what you talked about yesterday, Sue. See, I'm trying to fill in the blanks and continue that discussion from yesterday. I told Sue I had to admit I hit the bread pudding pretty hard last night. I'm sure that that was not what I was supposed to do after listening to your dietary tips. But nonetheless, here I am today with about as much energy as I can muster talking about resilience. Have I bent during my career? Absolutely. I've bent pretty hard, never broken though. Made some mistakes, and that's what we all do. We make mistakes and we move on. And hopefully we've got bosses that allow us to make mistakes and dust us off. The Navy is filled with history, filled with stories of resilience. From John McCain and James Stockdale, who spent 7 years in a POW camp, to Michael Murphy, who won the Congressional Medal of Honor recently, posthumously, a SEAL who never stopped fighting in Afghanistan. We are filled with histories of resilience and filled with histories of bravery and folks who stuck to their mission and stuck to their jobs. There are times when you don't feel like you can take another step. Stay strong and think of those men and women that are forward. So those are 10 leadership hints. Pretty straightforward, real simple. Nothing magic here. Your companies have invested in you to participate here at SCLA because they see something in you. You're all leaders in your profession, every one of you. You lead your communities. And the ideas that I've shared here will work far beyond the Navy. They'll work at home. As I prepare to leave active duty and complete 34 years of service, I've got some final thoughts I want to share with you. I didn't join the Navy as a visionary leader or anything like that. I joined the Navy as a young kid who just understood trust. Every one of us starts as a college graduate or graduates from the School of Hard Knocks. Every one of us joins the Navy or whatever our profession is and hopes to be trusted. We enter as trusted first-line leaders who simply understand the sentiments addressed in their vision, or in our case, our oath of office. We climb through those continuum of experiences to get where we are today. Now, as senior leaders, we're the guardians of our company's culture. For me, I'm the guardian of the Navy's supply chain practice, our core values, a steward of a supply chain profession in the Navy that's going to be as strong in 238 years as it was as its beginning. Every one of our Navy men and women's resilience has been tested. We've all bent, but we've never broken. And that's the Navy way. For all of us who are in the Navy, in the end, we're simply proud to have been a sailor. So I'll have time for questions here, but thank you very much for your attention. God bless all of you. God bless the Navy, and God bless the nation. Thank you.
Okay, great. He said time for questions, so we have microphones on either side. Does anyone want to start with the very first one? There we go. Okay, I think Jack will get you right over there. And then if someone else from this side, if you have a question, I'll come to you. It saves a little time.
Admiral, thanks for your service.
Thanks.
As a West Point grad, I would have to agree with Go Army, Beat Navy. But it's just what we have to do.
Absolutely.
In an institution that's 238 years old, how do you get your people to think nimble and to kind of break out of the Navy way of doing things, but to think about, in civilian organizations, we're always trying to have best practices and best-in-class operations, but in an organization that's been around as long as the Navy has, there is probably you have to get past that inertia aspect of the Navy way of doing things.
It's true. It's a great point. One of the things that is interesting is this thing called doctrine. In the services, we all sort of have doctrine. Doctrine sort of indicates, kind of gives you a sense of how to do your job, but it doesn't tell you exactly how. It gives you a framework. It gives you an understanding of the tools in your toolbox, but it doesn't give you the answer. And that's key for us. So when a ship of the line pulls away from the pier for its first time, you understand you're kind of on your own. You're going to fight the ship by yourself. You're going to make sure that ship stays afloat, and the care and feeding of those young men and women that are on those ships is the responsibility of that commanding officer. So that creates a sense of agility in the culture of the Navy that is very powerful and one that we embrace. One of the things that's important about the supply chainers in the Navy, the supply officers, whether you're military or civilian, you understand that. And in many cases, many of our civilians, like Bobby Reeder over here, started his career as a supply officer. So embracing that understanding, that culture, that as a ship captain, you're accountable for the young men and women on your ship, whether it's an aircraft carrier with 5,000 men or a submarine with 125. And think of a submarine. You're going to pull away, and you're going to essentially be on your own, especially some of our most important submarines, the strategic ones, who really want to stay lost for about 90 days. They're going to go out and do their patrol quietly. They don't want to be found. It's critical. that agility stays with us. And that agility is one that makes us, I think, very valuable. We also know how to do a lot of different things. One of the things that we joke at is you can find a Navy guy, and by the time you're all done, he'll be able to play offense, defense, special teams. He will understand the equipment man's job and just about anything else, because we're quick and adept at learning different jobs. And I think that makes us very valuable. It's a great point. It's easy to get wrapped around the axle when you're part of a very large organization. And we work very hard to protect that culture of independence. What else?
So this is Liz Newman, right over here.
Hi, Liz.
Hi, how are you? First of all, I'd like to thank you and your team for protecting our nation. Thank you for the service that you provide, because without you, freedom wouldn't be free.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
But my question is, in a corporation, as in the Navy, there's red tape. What tips do you have to get through that red tape in the Navy or in a corporation?
We have lots of red tape. But at the same time, I talked about the importance of agility. I'll talk about one other thing, and that's the importance of alignment. So sometimes getting the right people to understand what you want to try to do is important. I also think that there's no instruction or policy or even law that can't be changed. And we have a heck of a legislative affairs branch that works very hard every year to adjust our policies. I'm working on something that the academics in the room will appreciate. We send an awful lot of young men and women to school every year. We graduate about 1,100 students from our ROTC programs. But about 60% of the ROTC programs that are at state schools, our kids pay out-of-state tuition. Frankly, we'd like to pay in-state tuition, because the budget environment demands that we try to find opportunities to be more efficient. So there's a new bill, H.R. 634, that's working its way through that'll basically say, come on, guys, if you want money from the federal government, charge the students that are veterans or active duty members of the military in-state tuition. So sometimes you can change the laws and cut through some red tape. I'd love to be able to go negotiate, and I'm the guy who does it, negotiate all these educational service agreements with each ROTC institution. But frankly, that's a lot of time. Might be easier just to change the law. So, so sometimes Congress works in our favor. But you're right. I mean, work in alignment takes time, but I don't give up easy. And so top to bottom, all the way up to the CNO, who I talk to on a far too regular basis, to the fleet commanders, the Pacific Fleet and the Atlantic Fleet Commander, and to the systems commanders, NavAir, NavSea, NavSpace, and Naval Facilities. These organizations are guys I have to stay aligned with. If I want to get bogged down in red tape, don't talk to those guys. Create the bureaucracy that allows too much to kind of percolate along at the lower level, and I'll never get it done. So same in any organization, 2468 communicate. What else? Not a sequestration question? My goodness gracious.
I think this is a race. I win.
That's service, right? Don Clark from Rutgers Business School, and we graduate a number of young people that want to go into supply chain management. What would you tell these new graduates, since they just graduated a couple of weeks ago? What career advice would you tell them going into supply chain?
Well, for starters, if they're considering a career in the military, the Navy Supply Corps is the best place, and we're not the only place you can get a good start, But boy, talk about getting a grounding, you know, with guys like Leonard Lauder, Regis Philbin. I talked about Bill Marriott, Henry Trioni, and I can go on and on. I can name more captains of industry that got their start in the Supply Corps than just about any place else. But most importantly, I mean, how exciting. Go travel. Challenge the ideals. Get out of your comfort zone. I had a chance to talk to a bunch of young men and women who were graduating from boot camp last week in Great Lakes, almost 800 folks, including over 30 with college diplomas, who chose to join the Navy as enlisted men and women. Now, many of those are going to be going into the special warfare community, which I think demands a higher level of education. But a lot of those guys are on their way to be storekeepers and the like. And I would tell them the same thing. I would tell your college grads the same thing I told them. Take risks. Get out of your comfort zone. Challenge yourself. And you know, we joke in the Navy, the toughest body of water to cross is the Mississippi. Because most guys who are in Norfolk never want to go to San Diego. Most guys in San Diego never want to go to Norfolk. So you know, go out of state, basically. I hope that helps. What else? Okay. Well, thanks. One more, maybe? Okay.
Yes, hi. Thank you again for your service, Keith Helfrich. In industry and academic world, we teach our students a lot about continuous improvement, the Deming cycle, and Six Sigma. I'm curious as to whether the Navy, especially with the way we have to use our money better, does the Navy use any of these techniques formally, and are they successful? Yeah, with one little detail. We like Crosby because the difference between Crosby and Deming, Crosby said, a little fear is good. So I'm teasing here a little bit, but we've trained over, in Naval Supply Systems Command, we've trained over 30 master black belts. We've trained hundreds of black belts, and we've trained hundreds and hundreds of green belts. We did 211 major black belt initiatives, DMAICs to rapid improvement events, to Just Do It last year, and audited savings over $211 million. Audited savings of $174 million. And Bobby Reeder over here is one of our black belts who's here because he is so good at what he does. And he was selected for some of our management training. Bobby's a former supply officer. He's the 6'7" basketball player from the Naval Academy. You can't miss him when he gets up. But he's just one of many. I'll give you an example of the kind of things that we did. We actually got out of our comfort zone and we worked with the Bureau of Naval Personnel because they were having a problem processing their resignations. You know, officers that wanted to leave the Navy. And they took far too long to get it done. So we sat down with them, we looked at their business process through a DMAIC process, and the result of that was improved processing of paper for personnel. Now, our attitude was national stock numbers or Social Security numbers, it's all the same. You know, it's just a supply chain. So we really believe in Lean Six Sigma, and we've spent significant time and effort in investing in it. And I would tell you it's part of our culture. It really is. There's not somebody that doesn't look at stuff like that on a day-to-day basis. Our challenge is we have too many of them to really focus. So we focused on, for the kind of the flag officer level, we focus on 5 big ones at a time. We track those through to completion. And as soon as one's done, we bring another one in. So we're always tracking 5. And we have a pretty significant monthly meeting to address those 5. And whatever they are. Right now, it's an S&OP kind of issue. It's material positioning. It's how we run warehouses across the Navy, because I have some warehouses that have large amounts of excess material that I can't seem to get processed. I have some warehouses that are just fast on their feet, and they're very nimble and agile, so we're trying to rationalize our hours, rationalize the material. Lots and lots going on. Great question. Thanks. Okay, well, thanks, everybody. I sure appreciate it. And this is going to be a great day. So have a great day.